former one operator on this Navy, so I felt pretty fair. In the military, it actually happened while I was on vacation. I went to visit some family in Agora in May. 20. We planned kids' soccer game. I noticed everybody kind of stopped playing and started looking up. And 150 feet in the middle of the daytime clear sky, we saw a 150 UFO. There was a yellow circle kind of surrounded by 5 smaller circles surrounding, and I think pretty much every military vehicle that's been classified as that too. My dad was an operator, and I've never seen anything like it. Basically, glided, didn't make any sound. The weird thing felt like kind of electricity in the UFO. And then you moved just past the soccer field, and then took off faster than you could blink.
Check. What's a futureness in 20?
Brief. My name is Chris Ramsey. Today, we're going to be continuing our read through part 1 of the Lacerda file. So this is a 2-part file, probably a 4-part series. We've already filmed the first part if you want to check that out and get caught up. And if you are caught up, welcome back. Lacerda is a name that this reptilian female gave herself during the interview with the Swedish man in 1999. Numerous statements have been declared, including the fact that they've been here for millions of years, they were here prior to us, and that this planet was once fought over by a humanoid race and a different reptilian race. The humanoids won, and then genetically enhanced our species. The here, the monkeys were first jumping around in trees, as she put it, with the intention of making us into sort of slaves, mine, I'm sure, these precious minerals that they seeking. These beings were called Elohim, which then are also present in Hebrew text. She's also mentioned the differences physiologically between reptilians and ourselves, notably where we are still, number one, we go humans, but also the birthing process and food. They like to, as she stated multiple times, to eat flesh. Now, I was getting in the comments a few times because flesh is also, because this was translated from Swedish, and the Germanic languages use the word Fleisch, like in German, which means meat. So that probably lost in translation, but it doesn't help when you read the text in English to hear a reptilian say, I love flesh. Before we jump into the rest of the read-through, if you wouldn't mind leaving a like on this video, subscribing and hitting the notification bell, maybe even leaving a comment to help propel us into a favorable algorithm. Obviously, the YouTube and Google gods sometimes frown so unfavorably on people who speak of these underground dwelling reptilians. So it helps if you just leave a comment. It goes a long way. One more thing. We just launched our website. Big deal. Huge deal for me. Area52.shop is now live. We got many products there, many cool things that we've been working on. But one thing that I've been working on for a very long time, and it has finally come to, is the Area 52 cards, which contains a few secrets. Secrets which, if you choose to follow the rabbit, will lead you down a big amount of holes. And lastly, before we proceed, I kindly ask that you suspend your disbelief, because belief often only gets in the way of a good story.
In today's UFO landscape, it's hard to get unfiltered news. News that isn't biased on one side or the other. News that is sensationalized or clickbaited to grab your attention. When looking into a topic like this, it's important for me to ask for a thing like it. To part 2 of the Lacerda
All right. We left off. They were talking about how Bible, and that even the reptilians were featured in the Bible unfavorably, apparently. She asked, should I continue? And now we move on to Ole K. Is he names himself. Question. No, not now. I've made some notes about your history, and now I have some questions. Answer. Please ask. Question. First of all, you handle with a very large time scale. You claim that your primitive ancestors lived together with the dinosaurs, survived the, as you called it, artificial cataclysm, and evolved then over 40 million years, and your evolution was completed 10 million years ago. This sounds very unbelievable to me. Can you say something to this? Answer. I understand that this must sound absolutely unbelievable to you, because you are a young, genetically engineered species. Your historical ends at a scale of just some thousands of years, and you think this is right. But it isn't. It's possible. Your programmed mind is obviously not able to handle with such large time scales. Our evolution time may seem incredible long. Again, please forgive the amount of grammatic mispronunciations or misinterpretations. This is translated from Swedish to English, so there may be something here. As I read them out loud, I kind of cringe saying, but, let's move past that, please. Our evolution time may seem incredible long to you, but this is in fact the original way of nature. Remember, your early mammal ancestors developed together with dinosaurs and survived the bomb with us. They evolved slowly during the next millions of years, and they divided into various species and shapes. Some of them larger, some of them smaller. This is evolution of the body. What about their mind and intelligence? They're simple animals. The mammals evolved since, let us say, 150 millions of years. But only in the last 2-3 millions of years, they were able to become intelligent and thinking. And within this small period, beings you were created from nature. 148 millions of years time for the evolution of animal-like mammals. 2 million of years time for the more or less intelligent beings. Ask yourself, do you think this accelerated evolution is natural? Then your species is more ignorant than I thought. We have not evolved wrong, but you. Okay, Zerda here is claiming that the human species was aided in their development, especially considering their intelligence. Now, natural evolution exists. She's not saying it doesn't exist, but a guided evolution in this case is necessary in order to reach the heights of intelligence that we have reached in the last couple million years compared to the hundreds of millions of years that we've been around. So if we were to compare this to modern paleontology, it would say that hominids were only around for several hundred thousands of years, as opposed to millions and hundreds of millions. And so, if true, very cool. I also seem to think that on our personal time scale of several hundred thousands of years versus the last 5 to 10,000 years, there did also seem to be an accelerated growth intellectually. I often entertain the idea as well that, especially since the meteoric rise in propulsion systems and energy enhancement or energy harnessing that we've been going through, we might have also been aided by terrestrial technology at some point, especially these. This is interesting, but if I were to bring my Tesla back into the 15, or even earlier, back into the year 1, or even earlier than that, let's bring my Tesla back 5,000 years ago. The people who discovered that Tesla will never be able to back engineer the technology that my Tesla has. Impossible. Impossible that their feeble minds can comprehend the amount of technology that is put into that. There's no way. But what they will do is they'll take apart the door and they'll use the metal to help shield their huts. They'll use the glass to perhaps cut. Rest assured that they will never figure out how Tesla works. And without my phone or my Tesla card, you're not going to be able to drive that. And so they can turn the wheel and they can maybe bring the windows down until the battery out, but after that, they'll be taking it apart and using it to enhance their own lives. I think that is a accurate representation of what happened in the event we did recover crashed UFOs. I think much of the same. We've used a lot of their components to enhance our own lives, but failed at actually back engineering these things. Getting sidetracked. What are we talking about here? Let's get back to reality. Let's get back to talking lizard lady. I understand, but I have a question. You've mentioned many facts about the ancient war between the aliens 65 million years ago. This happened very, very long before your kind really became really intelligent. As far as I've understood you. Why do you know so many things about First War and about the evolution of our species? Good question. Answer. Previous. I've not explained properly to you. Our knowledge about the First War comes from an ancient artifact, which was found around 16,000 years ago from our archaeologists on the continent you call North America today. They found there a round plate with a diameter of approximately 47 centimeters. The plate was made of an even, for us unknown, magnetic material, and inside the plate there was another small crystal plate which contained an enormous amount of information coded in the molecular structure of the crystal. This quote-unquote memory plate was manufactured from the last bomb survivors of the human race from Procyon already 65 million years ago, but it was completely intact when we found it. Our scientists were able to encode messages and data, and so we heard the first time about the events which took place in the distant past, and which led to both the extinction of the dinosaurs. The plate contained detailed descriptions of both species, more about the human, and about the events and weapons, including the fusion bomb. It contained also a description of the animals and saurians on the Earth, including our pre-intelligent ancestor species. The rest of our knowledge about our evolution comes from skeletons and from back-reading and decoding our DNA. You see, we know the real truth about our roots in 16,000 years. Before that time, there was a more religious idea of our. That's interesting. So I think if this is a LARP or if this is true or not, but I think the point here is to really throw up a mirror in front of us and say, like, this religion, there's a whole world waiting for you after that. Question: what has happened with both aliens and species? Answer: we don't know exactly. The surviving humans on Earth obviously died in the years after the bomb, and others of the kind and the reptilians never came back to Earth, as far as we know. Concerning the reptilian aliens, there's a possibility that that was physically impossible for them to return, because the mapping bubbles is sometimes in rapid movement. The current theory is that those species had ceased to exist during millions of years. That's an interesting thing to say, that the matter between bubbles is sometimes in rapid movement. The matter between, what would that entail? What would that mean? Why would that be the reason that we don't see them anymore? They're just acting on a different frequency than we are. Question: you've mentioned skeletons of your kind. How can it be that human scientists haven't found any trace of you and your ancestors, if you really lived for such a long time on this planet? We have found many skeletons of primitive dinosaurs, but none of advanced reptilian being with a larger skull and brain and a hand with a thumb, as you described before. Answer: yes, you have. But your great scientists were not able to reconstruct the skeleton completely because they wanted to reconstruct reptilian animals, not intelligent beings. You would laugh if you knew how many of the especially small saurian skeletons in museums are totally wrong constructions of existing beings, because you used many bones which didn't really belong together, and sometimes you made artificial bones. If something was missing, you need to construct an animal saurian. Many of your scientists are aware of this problem, but they don't like to make it public because they can't explain it, and they claim that the right bones were just missing, and their construction is right. Many bones of us were used for iguanodon constructions. For example, with a visible thumb. Look at iguanodon in a museum, and you will see that I'm right. A scientist in the country you call the United States has built a nearly correct skeleton of our some years ago. Local government, which is partly aware, confiscated the reconstruction. As we live today, and since thousands of years, nearly completely beneath Earth, you will not find any cadavers or of us. Okay, I gotta look up a photo of an iguanodon now, alright? Because that's pretty cool. Hold on. Oh, they do have thumbs. Oh, that's so weird.
You can choose to rate the care.
Let's just ask ChatGPT one question as well here. So, certain dinosaurs, because they bones are missing, do you use different animal bones or even make their own bones to fit the skeletons?
Yes. Paleontologists sometimes use bones from closely related species to fill gaps. They also create reconstructed models based on fossil record and existing knowledge. It's a mix of scientific inference and creativity to get as accurate picture as possible.
I'm not saying. I mean, that's what. All right, we're gonna keep going. How cool would they be? This is real. I'm not saying it's real, but I mean, how cool would it be? Question: you speak sometime about underground cities and artificial sunlight. Do you mean something like a hollow Earth with this? Is there a second sun inside our planet? Answer: no, Earth is not completely hollow, and there is no second sun inside. This is ridiculous and physically not possible. Even your species should be intelligent enough not to believe it. A little jab at our species once again. Our little reptilian is displaying a salty behavior towards us hominids here, us surface dwellers who get to bask in the sun. And how amazing that sun is, might I admit. Do you mass a sun must have to produce energy and life a longer time by fusion? Do you really think that there could be a small active sun inside this planet? When I talk about our subterranean home, I talk about large cave systems. Caves you have discovered near to the surface are tiny in comparison to real caves, and huge caverns deeper in the earth in a depth of 2,000 to 8,000 of your meters, but connected with many tunnels to the surface or to surface even large and advanced cities and colonies inside such caves. Major sites of us are beyond the Arctic, Antarctic, Inner Asia, North America, and Australia. If I talk about our sunlight in our cities, I don't mean real sun, but various technological sources of light, including gravitational sources, which illuminates the caverns and tunnels. There are special cave areas and tunnels with strong UV light in every city. Use that places to heat our blood. Furthermore, we also have some surface sun in remote areas, especially in Australia. Could you imagine being on a hike somewhere in Patagonia or in like Arizona, in the desert somewhere, and you just see like just a bunch of like naked reptilians taken in the sun? Comment if that's ever happened to you. A lot of people watch these videos. You never know who's watching. If you encountering reptilian, possibly horny. Question: where we find such a surface near entry to your world? Ooh, answer: do you really think I'll tell you their exact location? If you want to find such an entry, you have to search it by yourself, but I would advise you not to do that. When I came to the surface 4 days ago, I used an entry approximately 300 of your kilometers from here near a large lake, but that you would be able to find it. There are only a few entries in this part of the world. More are far from north and east. So it's kind of weird that she's like, you think I'll tell you that information? It's 300 kilometers north, close to a lake. Like, I mean, why would you even... I guess me, it's just really hidden. A lot of lakes. As a little advice, if you are in a narrow cave or tunnel, or even in something that looks to you like an artificial mine shaft, and as deeper you walk, as smoother appear the walls, and you will warm air streaming from the depth, the rushing sound of streaming air in a ventilation or elevator shaft, then look for a special kind of artificial and smooth wall somewhere. cave with a door made of gray. If you would be able to open that door, but I doubt this, you would be in a usually round technical room with ventilation systems and elevators to the depth. This is probably an entry to our world. If you have reached this point, you should know we are now definitely aware of your presence. You are already in big trouble if you have entered the round room, but you should look for one or two of the writing symbols on the wall. If there are no symbols or other symbols, you are maybe in bigger trouble as you think, because not every underground installation belongs to our kind. Some new tunnel systems are operated from alien races, including my general. If you find yourself in a for you strange underground installation as fast as you can. I believe that was also John Lear's advice when he spoke about this. That is crazy. I've heard stories in the past of deep underground bases, but I've also heard stories of people who traveled in these cavern military who've encountered beings, just extraterrestrial beings underground and like engaged in combat in some way, shape, or form. Would that also explain a lot of the missing people, you know, in the national parks? Really interesting stuff to contemplate. But of course, often we think space is a good place to hide, like the backside of the moon or Mars, which is true. We go to, you know, the oceans. Well, the oceans, I mean, are at depths we cannot reach, and therefore a great place to hide. But underground, you killed thousands of stories underground, and you would not be affected by earthquakes as much as the surface. It's a safer environment to live. You would probably avoid any natural cataclysm or disaster. Thus, your species would be allowed to continue existing for millions of years. You know, so a smarter species would eventually become subterranean, perhaps. The happier species likes the sun. We enjoy our sunshine. Question: you mentioned earlier that you use the name Lacerda when you were among humans, and that you enjoy it to be in the real sun on the surface of the earth. Can you be among humans? You don't look like us, so anyone will see that you belong to another species. Why have nobody seen describe being like you if your kind lived already since our creation together with us on the same planet? Can you explain that to me? Answer: first, my kind was, of course, seen and described and worshipped many times in your primitive past. For example, in your religious writings, like your Christian Bible. You can find descriptions and even simple drawings also in the southern parts of America continent on various temples. So-called wise men from India and from the Asian mountains have described our species many times in writings, together with other wise men of the African continent. I think we are the most mentioned non-human species, maybe besides the eagle tree. If you don't believe me, have a look at your history and you will see the truth to my words. Your great scientists called the belief in us superstition and religion, and today's intelligent humans have forgotten our presence in the past. Furthermore, our species is seen even today, sometimes from human witnesses, in its original shape on Earth, or in our surface near entries, tunnel systems. But fortunately, you and your media didn't take the report of such crazies serious. That's good for us, and that's the reason why we allow people to see us as we really are.
Significantly changed.
Some of my species are also in direct contact with human scientists and politicians from surface. But this is top secret, as you and nobody of your public knows anything about it. The matter of this meeting is generally the upcoming war with and between the alien species and our assistance in this war. But there is also another explanation. Why we can walk among you, and why you are not mimicry. The following may again sound unbelievable and even shocking to you. But as you have asked, I will explain it. I told you before that we have more advanced mental abilities than your species. And with more advanced, I mean that we are able to use telepathy and telekinesis from our birth on. In fact, Mother and New Cajun generally with telepathy during the first months. Without special training, as you activate these sleeping parts of your brain. The structure of our brain is a little bit different to yours, and our is, I don't know, hypophyse, is larger and more active than yours, especially when we are in sunlight. Our own abilities are to yours, but weak in comparison to the matter string / bubble monsters. I was never good in that mind things, but we all have these primary abilities and can use them, for example, for our protection or even for attack. Okay. So is saying that do you have some capabilities that the mother and child are connected telepathically and communicate in this way for the first few months, which is something that we've also been hearing about with nonverbal, the telepathy tape. So she mentions that, and Diane Powell, they both mentioned that these nonverbal children, their lack of ability to communication is such a essential part of survival that you find a way to communicate in order to survive, and that's how they've developed their own dormant sort of telepathic sense. I also enjoy the fact that it was like the top of the food chain. I mean, them reptilians are not at the top of the food chain. That's really interesting. Must be a real blow to her ego. She does seem a little bit in touch. When we are on the surface and we meet human beings, even a large group of them, this makes no difference. All of your minds are like one mind. We're able to touch their mind, induce them via telepathy, command, see us as one of your kind. And the weak human mind will accept this order with refusal, and they will see us despite our reptilian look as normal. I've done this many times, and you weak humans generally see me as an attractive brown-haired woman because I created this special mimicry image in my mind years ago, and I can your minds without problems. I needed some time at the beginning to learn the use of the mimicry correctly, and it worked nearly automatically, and I can walk among a group of yours and no one will recognize what I am. There's a simple switch. See us as we really are, see us as we want you to see us in your consciousness, which was placed there from the Elohim when they created your kind. And use this switch to convince you that you see humans when you look at us. Other aliens use this switch too. It is easier than you think. When there are meetings between your kind and aliens exactly like yours, these aliens have used that switch, and some of the meetings with men like aliens can be also explained with meetings with my kind. When I met EF for the first time, he saw me also as a normal human woman, and I remember that he was very frightened and shocked when I revealed to him so much to unpack. But Lacerda did say that there were humanoid aliens, but now she's also some of the human-looking aliens are actually other-looking aliens, might not be reptilian, that are using this mental switch to make people see them or perceive them as the being wants them to be perceived. This is really interesting because when you I've studied hypnosis for entertainment purposes as a magician quite a bit, and these are things that you can actually induce through hypnosis. Hypnotic states allow you to really play with the senses of the mind, and that includes smell, it includes touch, it includes sight, it includes taste, it includes everything. There's studies of people who were fed invisible food, and not only were they pretending or thinking that they were really eating, they were actually having bowel movements. So physiologically, you're even able to affect the human body with suggestion. And so something like completely impossible, and much more likely than my skin actually shifting into some chameleon-like form. And I think this idea actually has legs to stand on. That could work, theoretically. Work for us because we would have to, induce everyone into a hypnotic state and lower their cognitive sort of reflexes. Whereas their evolution, they can do that very safe, without you even knowing it. And that's interesting. And the point about your mind is all one mind is very interesting. That's something that I think we're just starting to scratch the surface on with this whole idea. Well, it's the philosophy that has been echoed for a very, very long time. If you look at Hermeticism or Rosicrucianism, sort of as above, so below, this idea that everything is one and everything is connected is very old. But since the introduction of modern science, we've really strayed from that theory, thinking that they're like a philosophical, or maybe even spiritual belief. Now with quantum physics, I think we're realizing that this might actually be this field exists and that we're all sort of part of it. I digress. Question: do you mean that you really make me believe that I talk now with an attractive brown-haired woman instead of a reptilian being like you? Answer: probably, but I don't think so in your special case. No one expects to see a human woman instead of me. I can do it with his mind, even with large groups. Because nobody expects to see a reptile woman. But I've allowed your mind to see me in my original appearance from our first meeting on, and I have never induced something in mind. So you have already realized that I am not human. If I now try to change this, it would probably lead to an absolute confusion or to unconsciousness. I don't want to harm you. As I've said, I'm not good at these things. It's super interesting too. It's almost like what was that movie where the guy had like these glasses in the 80s and he could see what truly was. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's kind of cool. Question: that's very scary. Can you kill with that ability? Answer: yes, but it's forbidden. This means not that it was not done in previous times. Question: have both sexes this ability? Answer: yes. That's a sexist question. He's come back. He felt a little slighted with her condescension. He's like, what about men? Question about photos. How do you appear on photos? I'm going to guess that they just appear like reptilians. Answer: this is a silly question. I appear on photos as a reptile being because I can't have influence on the photo or on self, but only on the photographer's mind. For she would develop the film and show the photo to others, they would see me in my original shape. That's the reason why it's forbidden to be filmed or photographed, and we must avoid every camera on the surface. That is very difficult, and we were filmed in the past without our knowledge, especially from certain of your governments and secret agencies. I would love to see those films. Also, on a little side note, being in the airplane suddenly isn't so insane. You consider the fact that she inadvertently seen they really are be reptilian or not, but using her words, that mother back there is not real. I would have loved to be on that. By the way, that'd been a cool flight to be on. Probably not. It'd been a stressful flight after she said that. She said something about the plane going down, something else. I would not like to be on that. I would have probably got off with, they're like, this lady's right. He isn't real. I'm out of here. Question: what other commands in your kind induce into our minds? Something like serve us or obey? Answer: this is a strange question. We're not, most of us not. Why should we do this? To answer, it depends on the strength of the human mind and the strength of the descending reptilian. There is no serve us or serve in your mind. So such a command is much more difficult to induce. If the human mind consciousness is weak and the reptilian inducer is experiencing these things, and with some hours in the sun he or she tries to do it, then it probably work for a certain time. There are secret teachings about such things. I've never learned anything about it. I use my primary abilities for mimicry and for communication with my own kind, and sometimes for other private things. I never use them to harm humans or their mind. I would appreciate it if we can end with this topic here. I think she's annoyed at the fact that the person asking questions is making her out to be some type of monstrous being who has, this malicious intent, but in fact, she's just kind of annoyed with that. Like, no, we're not. I want to kill you. I'd do it already. I'd eat you. I'd eat your flesh. But that's not the case. Also, the switch idea is very cool. Because there are many abduction cases and many cases of alien encounters. You know, if you look at the case of Travis Walton, gray-ish aliens, or the one that sort of, there might not have been gray aliens, but something similar to the gray aliens, were a procedure on Travis when he awoke during his abduction. He then fought them off, walked into a different room, and encountered these Nordic beings, these tall hominids that were kind of jacked.
Damn, I wonder what they do to him. This story interesting, but
And they were wearing like fish bowls to their head. Almost silly. Almost like a silly interpretation of a human. Makes you think that what if those gray extraterrestrials, noticing Travis's demeanor and his panic, decided we'd probably give him something a little bit more alarming to look at, and then turn that switch on. Maybe that was the case. Very interesting to think about. I've always thought about, were the Greys working for these Nordic-looking folk, or were they both working for something else behind the curtain? Or is it just the Greys or whatever entity playing with their minds? And a last question. You've said earlier that you can hide your UFOs. Do you use the same ability to do this? Answer: yes, but on a technical basis. On each craft, which is able to send an artificial signal to your minds to convince you that you either see nothing but only the sky, or that you see normal aircraft like planes instead of our ships. This isn't used very often because we avoid huge public when we move in the atmosphere. If you're at your UFOs, it means that the device is either defective or deactivated for some reason. The camouflage effect were on photos to answer this possible question already in advance. But why should someone make a photo of the sky if he could not see anything unusual there? By the way, most of the surface entry points near to our tunnels are also hidden with such a device, and you will generally see only normal walls instead of the door. That is one reason why I've said that I doubt that you will be able to find such a secret door to our world, but it has happened a few times in the past. Well, what has happened to the people? Man, it's interesting. That sends a signal to your mind. Again, this type of technology seems way more feasible to me than actual cloaking. Technology could do that in a way, but I definitely think that our mind is the weakest link, because our perception, if you manipulate that, you manipulate anything. You don't need actual lighting technology. You just need something that alters your perception. It's an interesting form of tech that I haven't given too much thought on. Back to you in your own history. You've mentioned the race of the Elohim, who created our race, our human race. From where did they come? And how do they our God? Answer: the Elohim came from this universe, from the solar system you call Aldebaran in your maps. They were a very tall humanoid species with usually blonde hairs and very white skin. They avoided the sunlight because it hurt their skin and eyes. This was absolutely unbelievable for a sun-loving species like us. They seemed to be intelligent and peaceful at the beginning, and we started a more less friendly communication with them. But later, they showed their real intentions and plans. They wanted to evolve a disturbing fact for them on their new zoo. At first, they caught around 1,000 or maybe even 20,000 of your simian, and they left the planet for some 100 years. When they returned, they brought your more human ancestors back. When they left Earth again, and for some thousands of years, and primitive pre-humans lived together with their problems, they were just afraid of aircraft and technology. The Elohim had taught their mind and enhanced their brain and their body structure, and they were able now to use tools and fire. The Elohim returned within 23,000 years, 7 times, and accelerated the evolution speed of certain. Must understand that you are not the first human civilization on the planet. The first advanced humans who lived at the same time with less developed pre-humans, because the Elohim had experimented with different speeds and stages of evolution with technology, and did it around 700,000 years ago on this planet. Your scientists have not understood this because they found only the bones of pre-humans and some bit of cave drawing showing advanced teams and flying devices. This genetically advanced human breed, together with us, they avoided contact with my kind because the Elohim them with the leading purpose that we are evil beings and that we love them. This is all extremely interesting. One thing that I like to think about is let's say you were genetically engineering a species on a planet. All right, bit of a thought experiment here. Obviously, if you could bounce around the universe very quickly, that there is an abundant amount of exoplanets, that there are probably billions of planets exactly like ours that are capable of sustaining simian life or any type of life. It would be very strange to only do one of these experiments on one planet to that type of technology. You would be doing this on potentially hundreds of thousands of planets at the same time. You did this and created these little zoos where you can populate them with different species from other planets, bring them here, and species alter it genetically so that the carbon dioxide levels here don't destroy it, and the radiation is just right, and the gravity and everything else, and put them here. And you start populating all these planets, kind of like zoos, which would make sense why we have what a bizarre looking species. But we also have birds, and we also have Venus fly traps, and all the other strange things. The cool thing about all of this is that, as mentioned, they came 7,000 years or whatever to bring the ancestors, or they came back 7 times during 27,000 years with space travel and that type of technology. If I didn't have a home planet, let's say I did in my spaceship, okay? Time is definitive. The way that people experience time here is different than if I was living on a ship that had more gravity, right? Hypothetically. So, if my ship could, like an interstellar, park itself next to a black hole several hours, I can hop back. And although it was only several hours, it might have been thousands of years for the things on the planet. So, this evolution can actually be achieved technically from the extraterrestrial standpoint, perhaps within days. Think about it. They have no home planet. They can just dip beside a black hole and watch the evolution happen within days, which might also account for the fact that they don't really care about us. If you think of these abductions and how they sort of handle our species without any regard and say it's for the greater good, they just don't care. They do the thing back, and then they come back and do the thing to your ancestors. Interesting to think about. Well, after some centuries, the aliens decided to extinct their first creation, and they accelerated the evolution of the series, and so on and so on. The truth is that your modern human civilization is not the first on this planet Earth, but already the buildings of birds are lost, but the 5th civilization was the one which built with large triangular constructions you call Egyptian pyramid. 75,000 years ago, your Egyptians ancient pyramids in the sand and tried very successful to build similar constructions. And the 6th civilization was the one which built the cities with ruins you can find today beneath the sea in the so-called Bimini area around 16,000 years ago. The last creation of this breed viewer series was done just 8,500 years ago. And this is the only creation you remember and to which your religious writings refer. You rely on archaeological and paleontological artifacts which show you a wrong and short past. But how should you know anything about civilizations before. And if you find evidence of their existence, you deny and misinterpret the facts. This is partly a programming and partly pure ignorance. I will tell you in the following only about your creation, because the 6 previous mankind's are lost, and therefore they should not concern you. Interesting, the idea with the Egyptians, and that's something I think that a lot of modern sort of more fringe archaeologists, such as Hancock and others have suggested, and Randall Carlsat, we might have only stumbled on ruins and built upon those ruins, and that's something that we know that we do already. So, might account erosion on the Sphinx and so on and so forth. Interesting. Again, if a LARP, they're just from things that are kind of already being talked about. There was a large war between us and the Elohim, and also between certain groups of Elohim themselves, because many of them were the Elohim that the again creation of human species. The last battle in this war were fought around 5,000 years ago in orbit and surface. The aliens used powerful sonic weapons to destroy underground cities. On the other hand, we were able to destroy many of their surface installations and bases in space. The humans of your series were very frightened when they observed our battles down in the form of religious myths. Their mind was able to understand what was really going on. The Elohim, who appeared as gods for the 6th and 7th breed, told us this is a war between good and evil, that they are good and that we are evil. The evil race depends certainly on the point of view of the planet before they arrived and before they started their evolution project with your kind. In my opinion, it was our right to fight for our planet. It was exactly 44,940 years ago, according to that the Elohim left the planet for unknown reasons. This is very important to us because many of our historians call it a victory, that we don't know what really happened.
That's deep.
I am more on Lacerda's side. She convincing me that, yeah, this is their planet. Like, that's wild. I gave an example last time. If my cops started talking to me, I'd start believing it. It's just absolutely blowing my mind and giving me a new, perspective on reality. It's just the same. If, even, but especially thousands of years ago, if something came down from the heavens, burning with this fire, this light that is unexplainable, and spoke in our minds and told us that it was good and the other things were evil, you believe this. There's no if, and, or buts about any one ancient conspiracy theorist would instantly be publicly executed for speaking against such gods. That's the truth. That is exactly what would happen. If you gave me a time machine and I popped back to a few thousand years ago and had a flashlight with me and harnessed the power of the sun in my hand, I would be a demigod. So rest assured that the technology that is absolutely baffling to us intelligent species today, our technologically advanced species, that technology that's been absolutely paradigm shifting for any